LinkedIn Echo Chamber. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Nandu Govindankuti. Nandu, how are you?
I'm doing very good. How about yourself, John?
Really good, thanks. Hey, Nandu, this is a show where we bring data scientists, machine learning engineers, and analytics experts to talk to everyone to tell us how it is on the job, which makes me wonder, what are you doing here?
You should be telling me.
Yeah. Well, look, Nandu, you're here for a very special reason. It's because you had a machine learning startup company. So I wanted you to come on here and tell everybody how that was for you, the ideas involved, and how it all worked. But before we get into it, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. So if you could take 60 seconds, please, and just tell everyone, where you came from, what you've been doing. You can start back in those old days, 20 years ago when we were analysts together.
So yeah, John, thank you again for the opportunity. So 15 plus years in senior roles in financial services. I ran a venture capital fund focused on cybersecurity, a two-time founder, and then I co-founded with you a social movement based on analytics.
Hey, only 30 seconds. Excellent. Thank you for that. We've got more time for other things. So look, Nandu, I introduced these videos with a LinkedIn echo chamber as a bit of a joke, really. So my motivation behind starting this was that the AI mania is very strong, in my LinkedIn feeds. My data science is my background. So of course, I'm seeing all this AI stuff. But from the echo chamber side, I think you're the person who I've spoke to about echo chambers, perhaps more than anybody else, and it was an integral part to the project that we're going to speak about. So I wondered if you could, introduce the project that you started and the company that you founded, and just give us some of the high-level ideas behind your motivation and goals.
So, John, we did a lot of work as a part of our analytical charity for about 10 years. And then the big question was, how can I actually solve what I think even today is society's biggest problem? The lack of a platform for guaranteed balanced news, right? And to make things even more complicated, as you said, 50% of people in many countries consume news from social media, which as a result creates echo chambers, which means you constantly are pushed information that you either believe in or what you want to hear. So I thought that was a big problem. And we set out to do three things. One is, how do we create a platform where you're guaranteed, not balanced, multiple perspectives on any topic, be it politics, entertainment, finance, sports, and so on. The second one is, how do you create a social media platform where an author is mandated to give a multiple perspective, a counter perspective? And number three, the most important is, how do we make our so-called algorithms auditable? So that was the journey and how we created Balanced.Social.
And what did you build?
So number one is I partner with a very senior academic in Uppsala University, Rajesh Sainuddin, using mathematical network models. To be honest, John, I was so ignorant. When I started this journey, I kept saying, two sides of an argument. And then I realized, actually, it's not two. It could be 10, 20, 30, 80, 90, 100 different perspectives. So the first challenge was, how do we identify these filter bubbles? So, with the help of Raz, we actually created a mathematical network model which could go and identify these filter bubbles. And then using, NLP models like BERT, we picked up the most relevant in those discussions. So what we were able to do was create a platform where you guaranteed multiple perspectives on any of these topics, number one. Number two, the challenge is, as you know, John, we all consume news. Showing multiple perspectives is not going to change people's perspectives. So the second challenge was, how do you create, as an author, how do you create a platform where you're mandated to have a counter perspective? So that was really powerful, is because then the people that you follow, when you look at to people and they say, hey, by the way, even they have a counter perspective, the likelihood of you absorbing that information, I'm told, is about 50% higher. The third one is we actually created a publisher score for all those people in those social media platform with an algorithm, which is actually a combination of fact checking, combination of engagement, combination of how frequently you wrote. But most importantly, we created a panel of academicians. It wasn't open source, but it was auditable.
Good. And so people can follow the Nandu. So, I remember the project and you had to launch an MVP. So you built really a web application that was this platform. And how many users did you get up to here to sort of generate this type of data that you could then study through these network models?
So there were two things, right? One was we actually picked up a lot of information from platforms like Twitter, right? So we're talking about billions of rows of data. The second one was we started the social media platform. At one point in time, we had over 2,000 authors contributing to thousands of articles on the platform. So that was good.
Okay, what we do while we're editing this, Nandu, we're going to flash some images of Balanced.Social so people can see what it is and these sorts of things. Okay, so there was initial, 2,000 or so users. They're all interacting. They're adding these points of view with kind of contrast. What did you call them? Counterpoints. So it
That's
forces
right.
this a little bit of brain training, not just to kind of say, the one I always remember is, hey, Trump's an idiot. Force people to try to sort of say something good about this guy. And this
John,
was a
I know we
classic
are on a race
classic
against time,
discussion
right?
point.
So we did an experiment. I actually paid 1,500 Americans to actually take part in an exercise where they actually had to give a counterpoint. So we picked up topics like Donald Trump and electric vehicles. About 15% of people, these are people who are incentivized, they refused to take part because they either thought actually there's not a single thing bad about Donald Trump or there's not a single good thing about Donald Trump. The remaining 35%, there were about 35% of people who actually gamified it. They wrote Donald Trump's wife's very attractive, so he's got to be a good president. But the remaining 50% of people, they say for the first time we were forced to research. And as a result, we've actually slightly changed our opinion on the topic, besides actually showing them a lot of balanced content.
Okay, so this is a show about data science and the machine learning. Let's dig on it a little bit. So there were a couple of the network models and finding the echo chambers was one part of it. What other machine learning things did you have going on?
So the second part was we used platforms like NLP models like BERT, right? We did quite a lot of topic modeling as well, which you helped me a lot as well, John. So I think the difference here was traditionally people were looking at billions of rows of data and trying to kind of apply NLP and to find the most relevant content. We took a different approach. We said, let's first look at those filter bubbles, the 80, 90 or different 100 filter bubbles. Once we establish that, let's then kind of look at the most relevant conversations within those filter bubbles, because the objective was actually very low. The benchmark was very low because at the moment, there was no platform in the world that could guarantee multiple perspectives. So what we said is once we establish these, 80 or 90 different filter bubbles on a topic, let's pick up the most relevant. That may not be the most optimal, but what we thought was the most relevant at that point in time.
Okay, so it's like a reduction problem of how we've got a filter bubble. Let's pick on Trump again. Hopefully, we don't get sued for making this video. But in a filter bubble, you've got 1,000 people all saying Trump is a great guy or Trump is an idiot. That's their kind of starting position or something like this. How do you reduce down the filter bubble to a kind of main summary? This is the kind of NLP problem as to how to collapse all those sentences or pick something that represents the bubble the best.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll. I remember using topic models for this. There's good news, Nandu, is I've got an expert lined up to come and talk to us about topic models. So we won't go too deep
Okay.
on it today, but if anyone is wondering, you can think of topic models a little bit like lots of people have met clustering and familiar with the ideas in marketing and business of like how do you kind of put customers all together. In this case, it's kind of how do you put sentences or small text fragments all together when they mean the same thing. Topic model is then it has a slight extension in that each text fragment can belong to multiple topics. So we're going to get an expert to show us all of that, Nandu, which is good because
Excellent.
we won't have to remember what we did and try to explain it on this call. So what about how the project progressed? Because you've got a really interesting story with it. So I recall the MVP coming together, the web application, the first couple of thousand users. Where did you take it from there?
So I took then a plane to San Francisco to actually kind of show this to quite a lot of people. I had, people who were part of Washington Post and Wall Street Journal, some of them even managing editors to say this is the best solution that exists in the market for two reasons. One was it was actually forcing people to kind of change their mindset by forcing to have a counterpoint. The second thing is kind of presenting multiple perspectives on any topic under the sun, and that just didn't exist. So, that was very special hearing it from some of the best people out there.
So Nandu, you're really brave because this was a COVID project, wasn't it? So you did this during the lockdown
That's
and
right.
had to put together a team and try and persuade people to work with you while they were busy avoiding COVID and all of these things. What was the outcome of the project overall?
The outcome of the project was phenomenal because we actually had a running platform. We had thousands of users, and this is without any penny pushed into marketing. And we had some of the leading foundations in America who were kind of really keen to kind of partner with us. So that was great. And maybe for another session, I've pivoted now. I've focused on blind spots, and now I have a living business helping large corporations overcome their blind spots. So if you look at the whole project was helping consumers understand their blind spots. Now I've built an entire business working with some of the leading corporations in the world with their senior management to overcome their blind spots.
Good news. Right, Nandu, here's the good news. Thank you for taking us through that. The good news is you survived your first interview with me. How do you feel?
Great, great.
I told you the time goes quickly. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is ML's Like Teen Spirit. We're going to bring Nandu back. He skipped over there that he is an entrepreneur that founded a machine learning company, and he went off to San Francisco to try and raise investment, raise interest, and take the product to a whole new level. And that's not very common that people do that. So we're going to bring Nandu back in the future for a series of small interviews where he takes us through that trip, and we get to learn a little bit more about what it's like. Nandu, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, John.